Going through the newspapers and sharing them with you, some of the big stories that are there.
Yeah, and the front page of The Guardian, Claire, let's start there, shall we? This is an undercover police officer deceived a woman into a 19-year relationship.
Well, you know, we say stories in the newspapers, but this is something out of, we were just saying, Line of Duty or Happy Valley. An undercover...
So this is his job?
His job as an undercover cop.
Supported by his authority, his local force or whatever?
Yes, but he kept a relationship secret from the force, but not obviously the woman he was with and partnered with. He subsequently adopted her child, and then they had a child together, and then they got engaged.
Well, it's more than business, surely. There must have been an emotional attachment to all of it.
Well, of course there is, Eamonn, but, you know, when you have an embedded officer, you know, they take on the role of another persona,
they live
really.
It, breathe it, believe it.
And the other identity of the embedded officer was actually used on the birth certificate for the child that he had with this woman. This woman's family have been torn apart, they say, with the revelation that when the police officer commission came to them to talk to them, he kept it secret, the relationship secret.
Think of her. She looks at him and you say, you were my husband, you were my lover, you lived in this house, we have had a child together. And this was your job?
And you didn't tell me you were a policeman? And then when even in Somerset, I think it was the police authority found out this news, they sat on it for a good number of years, and then they went to the family to say, look, the man you thought you were married to is not the man you thought he was.
Dear, dear.
I feel
she thought he was a
sorry for the
businessman,
woman.
didn't she?
Yes.
And I think, if I understood the story correctly, he stopped the job. He was no longer undercover for 8 of the years.
He left the police force, Freddie.
So for 8 years, he wasn't even an undercover policeman. He was just a fraud. But the police did not alert the family to this. I think there's quite big implications for the force.
Oh, of course there is. Of course there is.
What happened.
And that whole family, I mean, has been absolutely torn apart. I mean, it even talks about the stress on the woman's mum and dad.
Yes.
I mean, they literally feel as though they've all been living a lie for 2 decades.
Well, they have been. They've not, but they've been made to be part of this fiction of this embedded police officer.
Terrible.
It was terrible.
You couldn't make it up. This is another story today which could be a movie plot.
Well, yes, it reminded me of all those hooligan movies, you know, where it's a police officer goes undercover, gets involved in the hooligan, and then gets so into the world that he loses himself.
Let's talk about the head of the Bank of England, the governor of the Bank of England, and mortgage rates, Freddie. Front page of the Eye that he's actually saying now, well, we might be reaching the top of the curve as regards mortgage interest rates.
Well, this is Andrew Bailey, the governor of the Bank of England, sort of trying to signal that good news is on the way. There is supposed to be, I think it's 21st of September, there is supposed to be a rise coming.
It's 2 weeks today, I think.
Andrew Bailey is hinting that that might not be the case, and that actually there's no suggestion they're going to be coming down or anything yet. But inflation is falling. It's actually starting to fall quite significantly now on all indices, I should say. And so the good news is that it looks like inflation is coming under control. Is that down to the government's policy? Is that down to the Bank of England tightening interest rates? And should we really listen to the Bank of England? Because after all, it is the Bank of England that let inflation rip for so long, and then had to do these very aggressive rate rises. Because they let it get so badly out of control.
They are aggressive rate rises, and they're also in such quick succession. I mean, we've had 14 of them in a row now. It's almost like you need to give it time to actually think through and adjust. Exactly.
Well, they were small, they were incremental, but frequent. And there's a theory. People who know about economics will know about this more than me. But there's a theory that if they'd done one very aggressive jump, so a 2 or 3% jump. That might have had more of an impact than just saying every sort of few months, 2.5,
The idea is to either scare us or educate us into not spending money. So I put it to you, instead of us all being broke, people can't pay their rent or their repayments on their car or whatever it happens to be, what if the governor of the Bank of England came out and said, look, folks, we are up the creek without a paddle here. You're all spending too much money. However, we can do one of two things. We can ask you not to spend, to keep everything under wraps until Christmas or whatever, or we can penalise you big time with interest rates. Which would you like it to be? If in the next months we all stop spending, we'll all be happy. But if you don't...
Well, I'm a guy veer towards the libertarian, so I think I prefer people to be encouraged to not spend, and they shouldn't even really need to be encouraged to not spend. I mean, I think what's been extraordinary is that in this post-pandemic economy, people are still spending. People are in trouble, but the consumer patterns are amazing.
Yeah.
You know, and even when, you know, this is why supermarkets got away with price jacking so much, was because people were willing to pay. People managed to save. A lot of people managed to save. Not everybody. There's people really suffering.
I think the whole model of consumerism has changed so much that we've gone now to internet buying, and it's so easier, and it's so much, you know, it's
and on the Never Never.
Yeah, you know, buy on the Never Never. You've got Klarna coming up, for heaven's sake, when you maybe purchase an online order on Deliveroo. If you can't afford to buy a Deliveroo takeaway, don't get it on Klarna. If you can't afford it, just don't buy it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, easy. Look, if you order something from Deliveroo and you say, how much at the end of it? And I think, listen, I get a good salary. I'm very lucky. But I started out the year and I said, right, my mortgage is going up. X is happening, the Y is happening. We still need to do A, B and C and whatever. And I thought, I've got to make significant savings, not just like, you know, a few £100 or whatever it is. So I thought, no foreign holiday, right? Absolutely, we're not spending on that. And there was a few other things that I looked at. And you just made the decision, we're not spending that money, we're not doing that. And I'm thinking, phew. But as Freddie said, it never ceases to amaze me. People who won't give up their holidays, it was my right to have a holiday. But I'm thinking, right, well, if you can afford that £5,000, £10,000, whatever, good luck to you.
I'm very glad you say that, Eamonn, because Deliveroos and foreign holidays was what I told my wife this year that we're going to cut out. And now I can say, well, Eamonn says it too. I've got some backup.
Well, definitely. There are certain things like, you know, changing the car or various things. I thought, no, we're not doing that.
Yeah.
But I despair. I do look at the price of things, Claire. You know, think of you. You've brought up children and you've been a single parent and all sorts of things like that. You try going, bring children to a leisure park or the cinema or whatever. I mean, you need to take out a loan for something like that.
Yeah, or we just didn't go. We made other forms of entertainment, or you made it work, like the Merlin passes, or, you know, you get coupons, or you do something. But I was lucky, I had 4 very close together, and they entertained themselves a lot as well. And, you know, we just went away and did what we could when we could. And there wasn't this sense of, I feel enthralled to do this. But you're right, a visit to the cinema before the 2-for-1 deals or anything like that, it was pushing £100, and that was a few years ago.
Yeah.
And by the time they get their popcorn and everything else,
it is perhaps too easy to be critical of people. I mean, I'm a spendthrift, I'll admit to that. I definitely far too casual with money. But, I mean, I also think my whole life has been advertising. I've been bombarded with messages to spend my entire life. So has everyone.
Yeah. And now Alexa's listening to us, isn't it? Selling us things.
Well, they'll do your shopping list and have it done for you by the end of the show.
Wow. OK, we've got to bring you the weather now. Freddie and Claire back in 40 minutes' time. Here's Aidan.